This lesson explores courage and personal growth through a set of literary works. Its core text, Two Stories About Flying, includes a young seagull overcoming his fear of flight and a mystery in which a pilot is guided through a storm by a phantom plane. Vocabulary and comprehension exercises support language and analytical skills. The lesson also features a humorous poem on identifying dangerous animals and a reflective poem about a boy learning to face loss. Together, these texts use flight and life experiences as metaphors to teach courage, responsibility, and understanding, while integrating literary study with language development. Imagine standing on the precipice of a high cliff or staring into a dark storm, both terrifying but for very different reasons. Notice the contrast here between the sunlit open wings of the seagull on the left and the dark, turbulent struggle of the aircraft on the right. These images aren't just illustrations, they represent two distinct sides of courage: the internal battle to take a leap of faith and the external struggle to survive a crisis. While the bird fights its own self-doubt, the pilot battles the elements and his own risky decisions. As we begin, keep in mind that conquering the unknown looks different depending on whether you are fighting nature or your own mind. Flying isn't just about wings in these stories, it is the ultimate symbol for growing up and facing the world. Notice the winding path up that mountain on the slide, moving from the dark shadows of isolation and doubt toward the success of the sun. Just like climbing that peak, true independence requires leaving the safety of the ground and conquering the deep-seated worry that you might fall. The bridge over isolation suggests that we often have to cross these scary gaps alone before we can bask in the light of achievement. Recognizing these metaphors transforms a simple story about a bird into a roadmap for your own personal struggles. We all have that one thing we are supposed to do, but are absolutely terrified to actually start. Focus on the expression of our feathered hero gripping the edge of that cliff, looking out at the endless, intimidating horizon. He is stuck between the safety of the solid rock and the vast, terrifying potential of the air, perfectly capturing that moment of hesitation before a major life change. This isn't just a bird looking at water. It is a portrait of the paralyzing grip of anxiety. Understanding his stillness here is key to appreciating the massive mental shift he is about to undergo when he finally dives. No hero succeeds entirely alone. They are shaped by the pressure, support, and actions of those around them. Trace the lines connecting the central seagull to the different forces in his life, from the high flyers to the clever strategist on the right. While the fear is internal, notice how the family dynamic, specifically the tough love from the parents, creates the external pressure boiler needed to force a reaction. The mother is highlighted as a strategist because she uses his basic needs against his fears. Mapping these relationships helps you analyze how external environments drive character development in literature. Success usually follows a predictable pattern of struggle, and this bird's timeline is no exception. Follow the vertical drop on the slide, moving from the paralyzing isolation on the ledge down to that chaotic, unintentional plunge. It is important to note that it wasn't bravery that pushed him off the edge, but the tipping point of unbearable hunger that finally overrode his fear. This sequence proves that sometimes we don't jump willingly. We are pushed by circumstance, and instinct takes over from there. The transition from monstrous terror to triumph shows that the anticipation of the fall is often worse than the flight itself. Have you ever noticed that this bird thinks and feels a lot like a nervous human teenager? Look at the thought bubble on the right. It is filled with heartbreak and confusion, mirroring the bird's posture. By describing the seagull's lack of courage, pride, and desperate feelings, the author uses personification to project complex human psychology onto a creature of instinct. This technique bridges the gap between species, making us empathize with a seagull as if he were a peer. Spotting this device allows you to discuss the story not just as a nature documentary, but as a mirror for our own emotions. Let's leave the sunny cliffs behind and step into a much darker, mechanical world of risk and danger. Peering through this cockpit windshield, you can almost feel the claustrophobia of the storm clouds closing in on the glowing dials. Unlike the bird who was born to fly, this pilot is relying on technology that is about to fail him, shifting the genre from a coming-of-age tale to a survival thriller. This shift in atmosphere sets the stage for a completely different kind of test, trusting the unknown when your logic and instruments go dead. It asks the question, what do you do when you can't see the path forward? Decisions made in a split second can turn a routine trip into a life-or-death situation, as we see in this sequence of events. Follow the arrow from the peaceful moonlit sky on the left into the swirling chaos of the Black Mountains in the center. The pilot moves from dreaming of a warm English breakfast to blindly following a mysterious guide, illustrating how quickly confidence can turn into desperation. This timeline pinpoints the exact moment, the risk, where his patience failed and he chose danger over safety. Tracking this escalation helps us understand how the black aeroplane appears exactly when human logic runs out. The best stories don't just give you answers, they leave you with a lingering sense of wonder and questions. Notice the large question mark in the center of the slide, bridging the gap between the building's suspense and the unresolved mystery. The author uses the isolation of the cockpit to ramp up the tension, but deliberately leaves the identity of the other pilot unexplained to force the reader to participate in the storytelling. Was it a ghost, or was it a projection of his own will to survive? Recognizing these mechanisms helps you appreciate how the author manipulates your emotions to keep you thinking long after the story ends. Now that we have seen both stories, let's place them side by side to see how they echo each other despite their differences. Cast your eyes down the challenge and motivation rows to observe the sharp contrast between the seagull's paralyzing internal fear and the pilot's external battle with the storm. Even though one is a creature of nature and the other controls a machine, notice how they both rely on a helper to bridge the dangerous gap between disaster and safety. This comparison reveals that while the seagull is pushed by instinct and family, the pilot is pulled by a desire for home and comfort. Comparative analysis like this is crucial because it helps you understand that bravery isn't one size fits all. It changes shape to fit the crisis. To truly get inside the heads of our characters, we need to understand the specific words the authors use to paint their emotions. Focus on the intensity of the word upbraiding on the left, compared to the calculated danger of the phrase, "I'll take the risk" on the right. Upbraiding isn't just simple scolding. It implies a harsh, sharp criticism intended to shame the seagull into action. Meanwhile, the pilot's phrase reveals a conscious choice to gamble with safety, unlike the bird who acts out of desperation. Mastering this vocabulary allows you to write answers that capture the emotional nuance of the story rather than just summarizing the plot. Let's crack the code on the specific questions you are likely to find in your textbooks regarding the young bird. Look closely at the first box focusing on the phrase, "maddened by hunger." This is the key to understanding the turning point of the narrative. The text suggests that the physical need for survival eventually overrides the psychological paralysis of fear, proving that action often comes from necessity rather than just bravery. In the second box, notice how the parent's shrill calling is framed not as cruelty, but as a necessary strategy for independence. When answering these questions, always connect the physical action, like diving for the fish, to the internal emotional shift that follows. Now we turn our detective lens to the pilot's decision-making and that bizarre, unexplained ending. Zero in on the second question about the mysterious guide and the two diverging theories presented below it, supernatural intervention versus a trick of the mind. Whether you believe it was a ghost or a hallucination born of extreme stress, the ambiguity is intentional and forces us to question the limits of reality. The text gives us clues for both, such as the radar showing no other planes, yet the pilot seeing a face. In exams, remember that there is no single wrong answer here, as long as you back up your theory with evidence from the story. You have the knowledge, but can you organize it into a full marks response that will impress an examiner? Follow the structure mapped out here, moving from the introduction down to the conclusion. It acts as a blueprint for a logical argument. Notice how the body paragraphs are split by character, ensuring you give equal weight to the seagull's paralyzing hesitation and the pilot's rash overconfidence. This structure forces you to analyze the cause of their fear rather than just describing what happened. Examiners love this kind of organization because it guarantees you hit all the necessary points without rambling. We have analyzed the texts, but literature is useless if we don't let it change how we view our own challenges. Look at that figure standing on the peak, looking out over the winding road he has just traveled toward the sunrise. The ledge and the storm cloud aren't just plot points. They are symbols for the barriers standing between you and your own growth. Real growth happens when you identify the thing that scares you and choose to step off the ledge anyway. Take a moment to identify your own personal barrier, because naming the fear is the first step to taking flight. If this lesson helped you, please like and share it with others who may benefit. Subscribe to Progny Education for more clear, concept-driven learning. Keep learning, keep growing with wisdom.